Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Lost luggage, the thousands of Canadians still searching for their bags, and the emotional stories of abandonment.
I'll be honest and say it was a bit of a mixed bag.
The damper on the Christmas ski season and how local resorts are trying to recover.
It was right here. The plaque is still there.
Plus, following the clues to solve a mysterious art theft and one reporter's surprising personal connection to the case.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. Some changes are coming to YVR this week as Canada brings in new COVID testing requirements for travelers from China. Wastewater from the planes arriving from that country is also going to be looked at. And as our Zara Premji explains, it's all to monitor variants as COVID surges in other countries.
A new form of surveillance when it comes to COVID-19 in BC, and from a different angle, one that will incorporate human waste.
YVR is moving forward with a new pilot study with the Public Health Agency of Canada and BC Centres for Disease Control to directly sample waste from certain aircraft arriving from specific destinations, starting with aircraft arriving from the People's Republic of China or Hong Kong.
It follows the implementation of testing requirements as of this Thursday for passengers arriving into Canada from those regions as well as Macau, a temporary 30-day reaction to the surge of the virus in China. The Public Health Agency of Canada says YVR's as well as Toronto Pearson's wastewater on a larger scale are currently sampled and tested, but testing the waste directly from the toilets and taps of planes can shine a light on any potential variants popping up in the country.
You might have an earlier indication that, hey, you know what, we might have a wave approaching, and you might be able to detect a surge in COVID-19 before it actually happens, before it manifests in the hospital setting. So you have time to prepare for this.
So we can have a better understanding of the pathogens that are coming in, variants of concern we can really see.
Both explaining as waves of the virus ebb and flow, we too need to take different approaches.
The virus is going to continue to do exactly what viruses do. It's going to mutate, and we will still see variants emerging.
But Bogosh says in order for this to work in Vancouver as well as Toronto, governments need to share their findings so everyone can be well informed.
It's a step, but I don't think there's many silver bullets with COVID-19, and this certainly isn't one of them. It's just, gradually moving forward in a smart direction.
The Public Health Agency of Canada says it hopes to pilot the program in the next couple of weeks. Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, after all that chaos at airports, including YVR over the holidays, things are not 100% back to normal for everyone. Some travelers are still stranded abroad. And as Deanna Sumanak-Johnson tells us, thousands of people are also still without their bags.
The holidays did not bring the family reunion Parhamza Betty hoped for. He never made it to Cincinnati, Ohio. 10 days ago, bad weather meant his flight was turned around midair. His luggage is still lost.
Just yesterday, I got a phone call from someone in Cincinnati saying that, hey, your luggage is here. Do you want to come and pick it up? So basically, I asked them to ship the luggage back, and then still nothing from Canada.
Thousands of passengers who flew with Canadian Airlines over the holidays still don't have their bags. Many travelers shared pictures of bags dumped in locations around airports or more unusual spots like this one in Punta Cana, Mexico. In some places like Ottawa, bags are slowly making their way back to their owners. Other passengers are asking airlines for refunds for lost luggage. They're eligible for up to $1,000.
Obviously, airlines have to absorb these costs because the traveler has entrusted them with their belongings, in this case, a bag. In some cases, the airline can resort to insurance claims on their own, but this is really a cost of doing business.
But money is not what Jordan Feist wants. The university student flew to Zurich to spend Christmas with her Swiss boyfriend. That was 18 days ago. One of her bags lost at Toronto's Pearson Airport still hasn't made it.
It was pretty disheartening just because the one bag was filled with all my Christmas presents for my boyfriend and his family.
She knows where the bag is just because she has a GPS tracker on it.
The only information I get is from my AirTag. Like, I wouldn't even know it's in Montreal right now.
The Office of the Minister of Transport, Omar Al-Gabra, said in a statement that they're in touch with airlines and airports about this situation. They also urge all affected passengers to file a complaint with the Canadian Transportation Agency. Though it's worth noting that that agency, too, is experiencing a backlog. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, Vancouver Island residents are in for a tougher time when it comes to commuting from city to city. As Claire Palmer reports, intercity bus service is being paused until May.
Today was the last day of service for the intercity bus service that runs from Victoria to Tofino. The Tofino bus and the Vancouver Island connector will fully pause operations until May as they shift towards providing a more seasonal service. Wilson's Transportation, the company that operates the buses, announced the cancellations at the end of December.
It's a tough time for the numbers on the bus. We wind up subsidizing the service for those that period of time in years gone by. And post-pandemic, we just can't afford to do that anymore.
The bus provides what riders say is an essential service, connecting 29 communities and 21 First Nations across the island's west coast. For many travelers, the announcement was an unpleasant surprise.
It's interesting at a time when everybody's concerned about climate change and trying to get people out of their vehicles, that we make it less and less easy for them to do that.
I come back and forth from Port Alberni to Nanaimo a lot because my best friend and my boyfriend are here. And then my family's in Port Alberni. So going back and forth, I've been doing that for a long time. It's going to be really hard to find a way now, unless I pay a lot of money for a cab.
This is a lifelink. And when I have to see my family later in the year to deal with the details of my dad's passing, it's just, I don't know how I can do it.
The service received government subsidies to continue running. However, it wasn't enough to keep the buses going. Any passengers who have pre-purchased tickets will be contacted directly by the company. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Nanaimo.
A 70-year-old man is dead after a fire in East Vancouver on New Year's Eve. Firefighters were called to Ormadale Street near Boundary Road and Kingsway just before 9 p.m. on Saturday. Investigators say the man's spouse heard a loud noise from a bedroom upstairs and that the sound is believed to have been a window breaking from the heat. They say his death is not considered suspicious. Well, BC's young workers are starting the new year with some new protections in the workplace. The changes to the Employment Standards Regulation come into effect yesterday. They apply primarily to dangerous jobs. Under the new rules, work involving logging, smeltering, oil drilling, or risk of exposure to certain harmful materials can only be done by people 18 and older. Jobs in construction, fish processing, some animal processing work, meanwhile, now carry a minimum age of 16.
When you look at the, what is happening, we need to recognize certain factors that relate to the age, such as physical and mental maturity of our young workers, that can impact their risk of safety at workplaces.
The province says current employees who will reach the prescribed age by April are excluded from the change. Well, the new year is also bringing some price increases. Landlords will be able to raise rents by 2% in 2023. A 2% increase is also coming for BC Hydro. Natural gas will get more expensive as well, with Fortis upping rates by nearly 4%. That's an average of $7.62 a month. Finally, with grocery prices expected to increase more, some cities will be requiring a charge and upping that charge for paper and reusable bags. Meanwhile, 2023 is already looking like another bumpy one for Canada's economy. And as Susanna De Silva reports, some are taking the news better than others.
New year, new resolutions.
It's just creating a new program for myself for strength, for weightlifting.
And some are being zen about the coming year.
I thought 2022, there was a lot of really bad things that happened, but a lot of things I think are getting better as well, and I'm really optimistic for how 2023 is looking.
Unfortunately, it's an optimism not everyone shares.
We expect 1/3 of the world economy to be in recession. Even countries that are not in recession, it would feel like recession for countries of millions of people.
The International Monetary Fund is predicting slowdowns for the world's biggest economies, the EU, the US, and China, now struggling with COVID, meaning possibly more supply chain problems as countries and consumers are already feeling pinched.
Canadians are feeling high inflation, they're feeling higher interest rates.
The Bank of Canada says a recession could hit Canada too, and the pains Canadians felt last year could be worse for 2023, including more interest rate hikes, high inflation with high prices, some suggesting groceries could be up another 5 to 7%.
There's been no growth in household real earnings. At the same time, they're seeing incredibly fast increase in their debt service payments, so expenses that they pay on their mortgages, on their consumer credits, different lines of credits.
And it's why many small businesses aren't feeling confident.
We're at levels we haven't seen really outside of recession periods. It certainly shows that it's not a strong economy right now.
Fortunately, some businesses say the challenges of COVID mean they have learned to be flexible.
I mean, we've dealt with so much in the last 3 years. It's just another shovel load on the pile. Like, it's not something I'm specifically reacting to. A lot of our members
as he hopes
really
more people will come here
people
to focus on something other than the economy. Susanna De Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, it's an exciting and sometimes stressful time for outdoor enthusiasts in our province. Tomorrow at 7 a.m., the BC government will once again open its online system for camping reservations. Campers will be able to book spaces up to 4 months in advance. The government hopes starting early in the month will help regulate demand after the site repeatedly crashed because of high demand during the past 2 years of the pandemic. More campsites are being added to the reservation system this year, and there will still be a first-come, first-served spots. Well, every year, local ski resorts wait for Christmas season, hoping to draw big crowds onto the slopes. This time, it's been a bit different. While the heavy December snowfall got people excited, Saurabh Sandhu is finding out the weather actually played a bit of a spoilsport.
Things started out promising with plenty of snow and cold temperatures to make even more. But when things warmed up before Christmas, conditions on the ski hills took a turn for the worse.
The snow was a lot icier, and also it was more ice that was coming down from the sky.
Today is actually much better. A few days ago, a little bit more visibility was not as good, but today is fabulous. So.
With colder than normal temperatures, local ski resorts had an ideal start to the holiday. Heavy rain soon turned a winter wonderland into a sodden mess.
I'll be honest and say it was a bit of a mixed bag.
Mount Seymour Park remained closed for 2 days because of the incessant rain.
And unfortunately, we had a bit of a warm weather front move in, so we had a couple of inclement days.
After that heavy rain came cooler temperatures with precipitation falling as fresh snow, some 35 centimeters of it. Fresh powder for the local ski and snowboard enthusiasts.
And this year we just returned again because it was so fun and it's like a quite good experience. Yeah.
Oh, it was pretty good. The snow is like pretty hard, so it goes like pretty fast here.
Despite the temporary lull, staff at Mount Seymour says business is good thanks to the early start of the season. And with temperatures forecasted to be less than average for January, they're hoping for a solid winter run. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, North Vancouver.
I'm not sure if you had the chance to catch it this morning, but the sunrise, it was a good one. These are just some of the photos sent on Twitter to CBC Early Edition host Stephen Quinn. He encouraged his followers to step outside and look east. Several listeners were kind enough to share their sunrise photos with us. And as per usual, I mean, I saw it in person. The photos, of course, hardly do it justice, but it was really a special moment for many. And people said it was their first sunrise of 2023, and that made it even more special. Okay, so I know some people say sailors. I come from a farming family, so red sky in the morning, farmer's warning, red sky night, farmer's delight. So what's the warning, Joe?
Yeah, you know, there is some truth to the old adage. I mean, you know that well, that it does line up, right, for farmers and sailors alike. And that's because the best sunsets and sunrises happen when you have sinking air locking in particulate matter that can help refract all of that light and create a more beautiful sunset or sunrise. So when you see the red sky in the morning, you're looking east towards that high pressure that normally means good weather. And that means likely that high pressure is headed east. So poor weather is to follow. Whereas if you see the beautiful sun set, you're likely looking at good weather coming in from the west. So let's probably count if you could see it tonight on no red sky and that sunset a couple of hours ago. And that is because showers are moving in from the Pacific as we speak, filling in over the next couple of hours. We are looking at a soggier Tuesday after our gorgeous start to the new year over the past couple of days. And I do want to mention the moisture will start nice and early, sort of pre-commute. I know a lot of people are heading back to work and school tomorrow. Anita, there is a chance of a couple wet centimeters. So it'll happen early in the morning, higher terrain likely, but good idea to leave some extra travel time with that risk for some wet snow before changing over to rain tomorrow.
Yeah, and of course, lots of cars on the road the first day back, so it'll be a busy one. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
It's not for everybody, but you can bet many British Columbians are kicking off 2023 with some New Year's resolutions. After the break, Dr. Melissa Lem will join us with some advice on how to make a plan and stick to it. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. You know, from weather events to major political shakeups, our BC photojournalists have covered a lot that happened in 2022. We want to show you now some of the beautiful photos they took throughout that year. It's time now for our biweekly check-in with Dr. Melissa Lem. She's a family doctor and clinical assistant professor at the University of British Columbia. I think it's only fitting that, January 2nd, we talk New Year's resolutions. I was at the gym this morning. It was completely packed. I feel like that's kind of the most common resolution people make. How do you make sure that people actually stick to that? Or how does oneself make sure that they stick to it?
Anita, there's a reason why exercising more is a common New Year's resolution. It's because it's a hard one to keep. And so with any New Year's resolution, I just want to provide a framework that's going to increase your chances of success at keeping that goal. So it's called making a SMART goal. So S stands for specific. Instead of just saying, I'm going to exercise more this new year, 2023, actually create a plan. When, with whom, how often. And that'll increase your chances of success. Number 2 is measurable. So start writing it down. Have an exercise app or a Fitbit or just good old pen and paper, because if you're not measuring something, you can't manage it. A stands for achievable. So make sure that it's something that you can do. Know your strengths, know what you can do, just to make sure you don't lose heart when you start not being able to complete that goal. R stands for relevant. So keep in mind why you want to do what you're doing, what your resolution is. You want to exercise because you want to have more energy, because you want to be healthier for your family, for your grandkids or your kids. So that'll help you keep your eyes on the prize. And last but not least, time bound. So it's important to set a start date, because you're not going to start something unless you actually set a date, and then set a goal for some time in the future. So in 2 months, say I want to be able to run 5K. And so if you create this SMART framework, you'll increase the chances that you actually keep that resolution.
Okay, great advice, and advice I'll probably be following. Another one that people seem to be talking about more lately is not going on social media as much. How important is it for us and for our health to cut back on that doom scrolling?
I think a lot of us have this love-hate relationship with social media. For me as a doctor, I like being able to share and get evidence-based information. But for other people, unfortunately, research shows that when you spend more time on social media, you can have lower self-esteem, higher rates of anxiety, depression, loneliness, and sleep issues. Because if you're up looking at your phone instead of sleeping, you're not going to be getting good sleep. So what I would recommend to stay away from those negative mental health effects is, number 1, to be mindful when you're spending time on social media. Think about how it's making you feel, and if you notice it's making you feel not good, either stop following certain people or stop following certain posts, and just create filters. Also, keep in mind that you want to link on social media and not compare. So the whole point of it is to be social, is to reach out to people, friends, family. So next time you're on social media, maybe send someone a message to meet up in real life instead of comparing yourself to all the kind of the positive highlights that people tend to put on social media.
You mentioned that you do some of your research on social media. What does the research actually say about New Year's resolutions?
The research says that we are pretty bad at keeping New Year's resolutions, unfortunately. So the average adult only keeps a New Year's resolution for about 42 days. By 1 year, less than 50% have kept their New Year's resolution. Also, the average Canadian spends $252 on resolutions that they don't keep. So It's expensive as well. And by 2 years, people tend to fall off the wagon about 14 times when they make a New Year's resolution. That said, I think it still is valuable to set goals and resolutions, because you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Yeah. But keep in mind that it's not going to be easy, but it's okay if you fall off the wagon sometimes, and just get back on and create those SMART goals too.
Dr. Melissa Lem, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thousands line up to see a former pope lying in state. We look back at a pontiff who shocked the world by doing the unthinkable, retiring.
For years now, doctors and scientists have pointed accusing fingers, and tonight, secondhand smoke has been convicted. The crime is killing people. That is the conclusion of a sweeping report by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. It declares that air contaminated with cigarette smoke kills non-smokers. The EPA report says secondhand smoke causes at least 3,000 lung cancer deaths in the United States every year. Children, it says, run an increased risk of pneumonia and bronchitis, and kids breathing secondhand smoke can also run a higher risk of experiencing asthma problems and ear disorders.
The report's fine print will be released tomorrow. It does not pull any punches. For the first time, the EPA officially classifies secondhand smoke as a human carcinogen. Not surprisingly, those two words are causing many more words today, both in the United States and here at home. With the story from both sides of the border, here's our environmental specialist, Eve Savory.
He has smoked since he was 8 years old. That's 35 years. But Michael Phillips says the EPA report won't change his life.
Well, I guess when you're hooked, you're hooked.
But for non-smoking groups like the Ontario Campaign for Action on Tobacco, the report is exactly the ammunition they need. For the Americans have classified secondhand tobacco smoke as a prime cancer causer, up there with asbestos and benzene and vinyl chloride.
This classification will put tremendous pressure on governments everywhere to finally get rid of a deadly risk like this.
That's right. It is estimated that every year about 330 Canadians die of lung cancer caused by secondhand smoke. Lynn Van Horn died last May. She had never smoked herself but was constantly exposed to smoke at the office. She wrote this letter to Ann Landers.
I'm the mother of 2 young sons, and I don't deserve to die this way because I have never smoked. At least that's what I thought.
And it's not just lung cancer.
People who live in smoking households are a lot sicker, take more time off work, visit the doctor more often and die earlier than people who come from smoke-free homes.
But tobacco companies disagree. They are fighting the science.
As of today, the science does not support a claim that environmental tobacco smoke is a risk factor for lung cancer.
While Canada has not classified this smoke as a carcinogen, it is far ahead of the Americans in trying to reduce exposure, and it will go farther.
It's clear in my mind that we have to do all what we can to eliminate tobacco.
The non-smoking groups would like the new classification to be a death blow. If they're right, says Michael Phillips, soon you'll only see smoking in museums. Eve Savory, CBC News, Vancouver.
We're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
This is the day Sunwing Vacations has said it would have most, if not all, of its delayed passengers back home. Many have been stuck in tropical places for weeks, and today, one group waiting abroad finally returned. But as CBC's Sam Sampson explains, they say they felt abandoned.
People make friends on vacation all the time, but this bond was forged in frustration. They met in Cuba after Sunwing canceled their late December return flight to Regina. They banded together along with dozens of others to get their families home.
I actually have a 13-year-old boy who suffers from severe anxiety, and he every day was crying, like, are we going to get home? Are we ever going to get home?
Initially, a lack of staff and winter storms forced cancellations. Then, Sunwing announced December 29th it wouldn't fly in or out of Saskatchewan until February 3rd. That means passengers were rebooked onto flights to other cities that would fly to Saskatchewan, but those were delayed by up to 6 days.
Sunwing has reached a level of incompetence that has never been measured before.
I kind of expected maybe going to be delayed, so they prepare a little bit more things, including medicine and diaper kind of things, but still, like, we really don't know what's the issue, because the message, for example, we even don't have the update.
If they had told us 5 days, that would have been fine. Every day into the lobby.
You spent the days in the lobby of your hotel?
Every day.
I could see you've been through it.
I'm done.
Felt like abuse.
Yeah.
Yep.
Val Lechner could have waited for a WestJet flight from Winnipeg to Regina, but she rented a car and made the drive instead.
I didn't trust them. We had heard that so many times. They're coming, there's a plane, we promise, we promise. And even after we were probably halfway on the road, or an hour on the road, and they're like, oh, there's a plane. Is there a plane?
Sunwing says they tried to hire foreign pilots for the winter, but couldn't. The airline hasn't explained why Saskatchewan flights were cut. No one from the company has agreed to several interview requests. Passengers we spoke with said Sunwing provided them with little to no information. Air passenger rights advocates say that's a no-no as far as federal legislation goes.
Whether they're on the aircraft, stuck on a tarmac, or whether they're in a hotel lobby in the Dominican Republic, they still have to correspond or communicate with their passengers constantly.
See you guys.
Sunwing says affected passengers can apply for compensation through its website, but these new friends are waiting for information on a class action lawsuit. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Regina.
Ukraine is now formally claiming responsibility for one of Russia's biggest setbacks yet. However, the scope of the Russian losses remains in question. A defense spokesman in Moscow confirms 63 Russian conscripts died in yesterday's strike in a captured city in the eastern province of Donetsk. They were inside a school used as a military barracks. Ukraine says the casualty numbers are much higher, 400 deaths and 300 wounded. Officials, though, have produced no evidence to back that claim up. Meanwhile, Russia bombarded Kyiv and other cities around Ukraine for a third straight night. Ukrainian officials say they shot down up to 40 armed drones. Well, a steady stream of people visited the body of Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI ahead of his funeral on Thursday. Benedict died Saturday at the age of 95. The CBC's Katie Nicholson is at the Vatican and is taking a look at the former Pope's legacy.
Well, thousands of people have walked through these streets today as they made their way to the Vatican. Perhaps not surprising, this is one of the largest tourist attractions in Italy. But what was surprising was hearing from them what motivated them. So many we had expected would be here to see the former Pope Benedict in repose, but many telling us they're here as tourists. And perhaps, though, that's not so surprising when you think about the fact that Pope Benedict had pretty much disappeared from public life for 10 years after his retirement. He really wasn't an entity that really people kept in the forefront of their minds in the Catholic world. And for a younger generation, Pope Francis is really the only pope that they know.
I was pretty small and young when he was pope, and then I don't have really a clear idea or an strict opinion on it.
But to another generation of Catholics, Benedict will be remembered, revered even, as a theologian.
I think the generation to come will understand how big he was, how large his theology and his knowledge and his wisdom, all this, yes. I think this generation don't see really what he was.
Well, he'll be remembered as someone who has done a lot to the church. You remember before becoming the Pope, he has also worked a lot in the Vatican offices.
Benedict will be remembered for more than just being the first Pope to retire in nearly 600 years. He was a sharply divisive figure. Even though when he first started as a priest, he wanted to see change within the church, thought it was necessary, he would later become an arch-conservative, pushing for the original Catholic doctrine at a time when many people wanted to see change in the church. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Vatican City.
Soccer legend Pele is being remembered where his journey began in Santos, Brazil. Tens of thousands of people have been lining up there as well at the stadium of his home club to pay their respects. The stadium will be open to the public for 24 hours. Pele's body will be interred tomorrow in a private ceremony on the 9th floor of a vertical cemetery overlooking the stadium. The three-time World Cup champion died Thursday at the age of 82. He suffered multiple organ failures as a result of colon cancer. Well, actor Jeremy Renner is in hospital in critical but stable condition after he was hurt while plowing snow. It's believed to have happened at or near his home in northern Nevada on New Year's Day. Renner is probably best known for his role as Hawkeye in the Marvel Cinematic Series. The 51-year-old has received 2 Oscar nominations, one for Best Actor for his role in The Hurt Locker and one for Best Supporting Actor in The Town Details About What Happened. And the nature of Renner's injuries have not been disclosed. What's old is new again. The rise of the classic video game and why, despite technological innovation, these games are still winners. Next.
Hi, I'm Julie Nolke, and I'm about to play Jam or Not a Jam. I don't know that this one's a jam. He's got such a gentle voice.
You never know on my mind, oh my, oh my.
Gosh, it really slaps in the chorus, eh? I don't know if it's a jam, but I'm grooving, so what does that mean? If this came on in the bar, I'd be like, this is time for a bathroom break.
The last few months I've been working on me, baby.
Well, this one's groovy. Whose is this voice? The Weeknd. Oh, his voice sounds like the human version of Velvet. He could sing anything. He could sing a McDonald's tag and it would sound sexy. I already swoon over a Big Mac. It doesn't take much to make me swoon. I think that's definitely a jam.
Young blood thinks there's always tomorrow.
Ugh. Oh, the ghost of... What is that? Is that Justin Bieber? Oh, I can't with the... It sounds like a yuck. It's not my vibe. It's not for my ears. And now I hear the chorus come in and I'm like, I somehow know all the words. It's not a jam. Justin Bieber, not a jam. Love you, but no, he's not watching this.
I took offense to that.
Today's gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you. And by now, you should have somehow realized what you gotta do.
I love this. I love this so much. I've got drums everywhere. Oh, I'm sweating. Oh, that is a hard jam. That is so good. I feel that in my loins. That is so good.
All right, everyone, gird your loins.
And it hits my nostalgia button, you know? I want to hear every cover with these drums. Now, is this the Chicago version or is this the Janet Jackson version?
Back on the road again.
It's Janet.
Looking for the right guy to be mine. Friends say I'm crazy cause easily I fall in love. Gotta do it differently this time.
This song is so good. I love Janet with my whole heart. I'm learning guitar and I can play this on guitar. That Janet album is of my youth. That whole album. It's so good. So, so good. And Janet Jackson is an icon. So absolutely a jam. 100%.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back.
And that's what empowered nations and empowered people to just literally steal land.
This is a consequence of your actions.
And it's time to give land back.
Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Canada's quest for gold at the World Juniors got back up tonight as the team faced off in the quarterfinals against Slovakia.
Tries to gather it back up, it does, but it's now poked back out. Stolen by Stankoven, in for Bedard, here he comes, scores! Canada's all-time goal-scoring leader!
Canada was seen as the heavy favorite heading into tonight's game, but after a strong start, Slovakia pushed things into overtime. Offensive phenom Connor Bedard came out strong out of the gate with an early goal, and as you can see, scored the overtime winner, with Canada beating Slovakia 4-3. Okay, shivering swimmers returned to Vancouver's English Bay on New Year's Day for the polar bear swim. The participants braved the icy waters yesterday morning to take part in the event. Folks of all ages wore everything from summer swimwear to Halloween costumes as they took the plunge. This year's Chili Dip is the first in-person polar bear swim at English Bay since 2020. The last organized swim took place just before the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Vancouver's annual polar bear swim was started more than 100 years ago in 1920 by Greek immigrant Peter Pantages. Well, the power of nostalgia is driving up sales of vintage video game consoles, and some retro games are more popular now than when they were first released. Matthew Moore has more.
Over the holidays, video game consoles like the PlayStation 5 had some stiff competition from the games of Christmas past. Vintage is back in style, and in a big way. Consoles like the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and Game Boy are becoming increasingly more popular. While parents at the time may have rolled their eyes and considered these games to be time wasters, now they're considered art, alongside movies and music.
Because the limitation bred the artistry, the creativity. And so there's just something about like the old games that even though, you know, we are the old men and women being like, watch Gone with the Wind instead, it's like play Mega Man 2. They have that appeal.
Chen points to the style of games made in the late 80s and early 90s. When I was a kid, rushing back to the family room on a Saturday morning to play video games. These games, at the time, were state-of-the-art. So much so that today's developers are inspired by their own nostalgia to create that classic look. One of the most popular games being played today came out in 1984, a couple years before my time even, and it has a huge online presence for gamers.
Tetris is my favorite video game of all time, right? Like, I talked about art and all this kind of stuff. Like I think Tetris is perfect art. Like, that game is art. I think it's the perfect video game ever made.
Chen commentates on game streams. That's live online events where thousands tune in to watch other people play video games. The classic Tetris World Championship takes place every fall in the United States. And the 2018 final has 18 million views on YouTube. Streaming does help bring these games to new eyes, but Chen says nostalgia plays a pretty big role. The deck box in Halifax is feeling the surge of interest as they struggle to keep things in stock. It started as a trading card store, but began selling games and consoles after customers showed an interest.
I think it's one of those things where it's you know, a lot of people have very distinctive memories tied to games, and whatever hits someone in that right spot. Things like Mario is an eternal favorite because it's got such a great core gameplay loop, and it's still accessible. But there are some games that are still classics because they have such a engaging story or such a core gameplay loop that just kind of grabs you.
And many games and consoles are fetching top dollar, like this game, Doom 64. Mint condition in package, it's listed for $1,000. For many, these games are a portal to the good old days.
Graphics are not everything. Story does a lot to carry a game, and there are a lot of awesome gaming experiences out there that are either sort of like forgotten or overlooked because of the rush to the new. But there are some real awesome games out there that are timeless.
Nostalgia does drive sales too. Chen says his nephews are currently enthralled by games made when he was their age. These are the games that I remember from my youth, playing them in this basement. They're memories that I still hold very dear to me. It's kind of similar to what boomers feel when they look at classic cars, although arguably the cars might be a little bit more shiny and practical. But it's as the old saying goes, everything that's old is new again. Matthew Moore, CBC News, Sydney.
Okay, so much to talk about. The $1,000 game. Our colleague there animated into a video game, digitized.
I kind of wish we returned and we were also in 2-bit.
Oh, come on.
We'll work on that for next time.
But the thing I can't stop thinking about is the sweat pouring down that guy's
That
forehead.
really got you. This is hardcore, Anita. And when I challenge you to an original duck hunt, then, you know.
I will be sweating that much?
Yes, exactly. I do love the nostalgia, though, and you and I are both saying original Nintendo all the way, right?
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, there we go. We're going to check in on what is not a very wet forecast for us. We do have some rain, but I actually want to slide you down to California. We've had a bit of a break up in BC from the atmospheric rivers, which we had leading up to Christmas. That's that stream of moisture bringing subtropical temperatures and rainfall. That's hitting Southern California. This moved in on New Year's Eve, bringing the second wettest day ever to San Francisco. Lots of flooding concerns, and there are more rivers on the way. But just a reminder that this is how much of the western half of North America gets a significant portion of their rainfall each year, and sometimes that scale tips towards the detrimental rather than beneficial. So that's happening well south of the border. We're getting a couple Pacific systems in over the next couple of days, as I mentioned, 2 right now at YVR, and temperatures will continue to drop over the next couple of hours, getting close to the freezing mark. And that's why tomorrow morning, there is a chance you can see the purple showing up across the south coast at higher elevations. We could be looking at some wet snow. I do think it's our usual suspects that we'll see the couple slushy centimeters, Burnaby Mountain, for example, and then changing over to showers as we head into mid-morning and we get above the freezing mark. Wednesday, bit of a break between systems, and then Thursday and into Friday, we get our final second and third system of the week. I don't think we'll see any weather warnings, but definitely fresh mountain snow. -1 in through Williams Lake tomorrow. A few flurries for Prince George. Lovely up towards the northeast, and clearing as we head into the afternoon for Prince Rupert after a soggy and windy start. There's our wet snow and showers for Tuesday. Break on Wednesday, and then notice as we head into that Thursday, Friday, end of the week, temperatures really climbing double digits, which we haven't seen in a while. Looking like a nice weekend. I think we'll need that sunshine after, a return to regular life post-holidays.
Well, it's a good thing we have our sunshine outfits on today.
Exactly. We're channeling. Yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
After the break, we go deeper into the mystery of an unsolved Canadian art heist. The CBC's Paul Hunter and his surprising connection next.
One of my earliest memories is watching my mom and honestly kind of, I think, being annoying in the kitchen. I still am today. I would always be hanging. When she was cooking on the stove, I'd be right there watching at eye level, so I'd be told, like, get away, get away. My name is Richard Troy Stewart. I'm known as Chef Troy. I work with Parksdale Food Center. What I do is, right now, I teach people online who want to learn how to cook. Now, for the onions, we want to dice them up. I started having seizures, and they were grand mal seizures. We didn't know why, and it ended up being what's called gluten ataxia. I was told by my doctors that you'll never be able to cook on your own, and a friend of mine was like, Troy, it's your passion. Like, why don't you try doing something online? And then Chef Anna heard what I was doing, and next thing I know, I'm being hired by Parkdale to do the online classes. Chef Anna or myself, we come up with recipes, and then, like I said, we try and base it off of what we receive. Today we are doing a bacon and potato soup. So now you guys can see what I'm doing. The dynamics of the class is amazing because we have people from different cultures, backgrounds.
My life, I'm homebound, and this has given me a community, neighbors and friends, and I mean, even Troy, I love seeing your smiling face every week, and Anna, I mean, it's taught me valuable skills.
When you've gone through everything that I've gone through, having your life taken away, to being where I am and doing what I do, and I love what I do. And somebody says you're an inspiration, I'm like, wow, I don't see that, but thank you. Like it's a beautiful, beautiful compliment. That makes it all worth it.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. Enjoy groundbreaking contemporary works of theatre, dance, music, and multimedia at the annual Push International Performing Arts Festival, January 19th to February 5th. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
Tonight, we're diving into the mystery of who stole a famous portrait of Winston Churchill through a man who found himself inside the investigation. The CBC's very own Paul Hunter. Now, that portrait vanished from an Ottawa hotel around this time last year. And unbeknownst to him at the time, Paul held a crucial clue. He takes us through how it all unfolded.
Waiting in the evidence room at a securitized police warehouse in suburban Ottawa, and there it is.
That's it.
The phony Churchill.
Let's take a look.
The faked photo of Winston Churchill, a key clue in Canada's art heist of the century.
This is the evidence?
This is the evidence that was recovered from the scene.
Wow.
Now discolored by forensic chemicals, CBC News was given special access to what has now been scoured for fingerprints and DNA. A scrawled, forged signature. And Churchill's hand, the only signals now on view that this was meant to be that. One of the most iconic portraits of the last 100 years, known as the Roaring Lion, a vintage photo of the British Prime Minister after a wartime speech in Ottawa.
When I warned them that Britain would fight on alone.
Taken by Canada's Yusuf Karsh in 1941. Stoic, purposeful, resolute, stolen. The still unsolved mystery began here at a castle of a hotel in downtown Ottawa, the Chateau Laurier. Karsh himself once worked and lived here. He gifted the Churchill and others to the hotel as a thank you, and for decades it hung alongside some of his other photographic masterpieces right out in the open for all to see and enjoy until it was taken.
Every day someone?
Every day. People come and ask, where was it? What happened? Did you find it? Every day.
Really?
Hotel manager Geneviève Dumas can still hardly believe the Churchill's gone.
It was right here. The plaque is still there.
Holes in the wall and a brass nameplate is pretty much all that's left.
A swap happened, and there's special anchors. It was bolted on 4 anchors, so somebody knew how to do it, knew how to remove it. I don't know.
One big clue, the fake left behind by the thief. This is it back when it was on the wall. It was only last August that a hotel staffer noticed the frame was too dark. Here's an old photo of the original. In hindsight, it's easy to see the difference. On the left, the original frame is gold, not brown. On the right, the fake is overall smaller. But for months, no one noticed.
So when this happened, we asked for anybody that had pictures of Churchill to find
Hotel guests sent in photos they'd taken, hoping that it would help crack the case. The most recent shot of the original in place was this one from Christmas Day 2021.
People were sending us pictures. You were one of them, Mr. Hunter.
I had the fake.
The
right?
latest original was December 25th. So when you sent us that picture of the fake on January 6th, we know that it disappeared between December 25th and January 6th.
That's right. The photo of the print, the first known photo of the fake, was taken by me. Why? Well, it all goes back to my late mother, who in the 1950s helped get Churchill re-elected in the UK, after which he sent her a signed letter of thanks, which became a family heirloom, and for years stood alongside a copy of a Karsh at our home in Toronto. Whenever I'm in Ottawa, I'd stop by the hotel to see the vintage roaring lion so that I could, in a sense, say hi to my mom. And last January, I took this picture, not knowing that months later, by fluke, it would narrow the window for the theft to just 12 days. And here's another clue. This is the lobby just recently, next to the room with all the photos. This is the lobby around the time the Karsh was stolen, in another shot that I took on that trip. Ottawa was in a COVID lockdown. Perfect timing, says ex-FBI agent Robert Whitman in Philadelphia, who years ago founded the FBI's art heist division.
That to me would be opportunity.
A valuable photo in a near-empty hotel.
What went through your mind when you heard about the Karsh theft in Ottawa?
Well, the first thing I thought of was it was an inside job. It would have to be someone who had access, who was supposed to be there. When it comes to these
and savvy enough to hang that fake in its place. In the world of art crime, he says, fakes are a key tool.
It's not a good reproduction, but that's all it takes, because people aren't looking specifically at that. The casual observer is not going to see that's not the original.
Fakes, he says, are meant to buy time for the thief. Most people won't see the difference, at least not at first.
It just has to be close enough.
Close enough.
Eventually, he says, most stolen art comes onto the market. And when that happens,
someone talks about it. They tell the wrong person. The wrong person turns around, tells the police, and then there's an undercover operation to recover it.
That said, it's a process that can take years. Meanwhile, say those who know this stuff, the world has lost a piece of history. In the President's Wing at the Smithsonian Portrait Gallery in Washington, familiar faces are framed on wall after wall after wall. And in a special room brought out just for us, a prime minister. Another rare, made by Karsh himself, roaring lion. Smaller than the one stolen in Ottawa, cherished by curator Anne Schumard.
It's an artifact of that moment, and I think that's one of the things that makes it special.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is. It's extraordinary.
Schumard underlines Karsh prints are always of value, but the Churchill itself is special. Not least with its backstory. Churchill's cigar snatched away by Karsh moments before the photo, bringing that now famous scowl.
It made Karsh's career. I mean, up until that point, he was really not known outside of Canada. It became the most well-known of all of his portraits over time. If someone, even if they don't know the name Karsh, if they think about Winston Churchill, this is probably the image that comes to mind.
When you think of Churchill,
You think of this.
you think of this.
So this was the Karsh apartment.
They lived here.
They did.
Come on, Stuart.
For 20 years.
It's beautiful.
It is gorgeous.
Back at the chateau, Geneviève Dumas takes us into the rarely seen rooms where Karsh spent so many years.
I see Hemingway, George Bernard Shaw.
His work, icons, all on every wall, underlining for Dumas what's been lost.
It needs to be shown to the world. It needs to come back here where it belongs. I'm sincerely hoping this will reach someone who knows what happened, and this will make the picture to come back.
You sound so frustrated.
Yes, I'm frustrated. This is part of this hotel. It's part of the history. It's part of Canada, of Ottawa. It belongs here.
All right, thank you.
And with that, Ottawa police take the fake into the back room. Their investigation remains active, but the roaring lion remains gone. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Ottawa.
Another Paul Hunter special there, an incredible mystery. And with that, we leave you tonight to help solve it. Thanks for being with us on our first show of 2023. We actually leave you tonight with a montage of the best drone shots from the last year taken by our reporter, GP Mendoza.